Hey everybody, welcome back to K Family Sports Cards. This is Mr. K, and in this video we're going to do something a little bit different. The other day I was watching a breaker on YouTube, well-known breaker. I actually watch him a couple times a week. I find him very informative. He's entertaining. He's got a good personality. I find him to be very, very honest. And I usually watch him when I'm driving around doing some early morning deliveries that I do. But he said something that kind of shook my head at. He was going through via chat GBT about who the 10 best pitchers were of all time, and chat GBT listed the 10. And it also gave a supplementary list of players, which he read through. And the last person on the list was Grover Cleveland Alexander, which he laughed at that name. And after he read it, he said, "Who?" And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's a Hall of Fame pitcher, and you don't know who he is? I know this guy's knowledge of baseball probably prior to his birth is not the best, but I would think you'd know who Grover Cleveland Alexander is. So he ended up going through his stats and reading them off. And then he kind of got hung up on his nickname, kind of laughed, and he was sidetracked. And I don't think he ever finished all of the accomplishments that he had. But Alexander's nickname, he had a couple of them. One was Alexander the Great, which was fitting, and the other one was Pete, and that was given to him by his teammate, Bill Killifer, who was a catcher. And he was given that nickname when they were on a hunting trip because he thought Alexander resembled a character in the short movies at the time. And actually, Killifer kind of mistakenly combined a couple characters into one. And the last part of this character's name was Pete. And that's what actually stuck. But yeah, he was known as Pete. Big deal. Alexander just had some great accomplishments over his career. Incredible numbers. The great equalizer stat of WAR, which is God's gift to stats, he finished 119.9 in that category, and that was the fourth best among pitchers. He had an 11.6 WAR in 1920. He was third in all-time wins with 373, and he led the NL in WAR 5 times and 6 times among just pitchers. He had 90 shutouts, the most in the National League, and second all-time. He had a 2.56 lifetime earned run average, and he had 600 complete games and a 1.12 whip. He led the National League in ERA 4 or 5 times, depending on which source that you're going to go by. And he walked only 1.65 batters per 9 innings over his career, and that ranks among the best all time. He had 3 pitching Triple Crowns. He led the National League 6 times in wins and 5 times in whip. He averaged 27 wins his first 7 years in the majors, all with the Phillies, including 3 of 30 or more in consecutive years, 1915, 16, and 17. As a rookie in 1911, he won 28 games and had a 2.57 ERA, 227 strikeouts, and 3 saves, which were obviously recalculated because they didn't have saves back then. He was drafted for the war effort, World War I, in 1918, and he only pitched briefly that season before serving his country, missing a prime year of his career like Ted Williams did and many other players back during World War II and the Korean War. Philadelphia actually traded him in late 1917 because they knew he was going to be drafted, so they wanted to get something out of it. So they sent him to the Cubs with his battery mate Bill Killifer in exchange for $55,000, which in today's currency would be approximately $1.5 million. And the players that the Phillies received were Mike Pendergast and Pickles HOFer, and Alexander pitched just 3 times during that season. During the war, he was gassed, serving in France as an army sergeant, and he also lost some of his hearing from the artillery shelling. He ended up returning to the States with what we now know as PTSD, and his epilepsy, which many people think started when he was a child after being hit by a ball in the head running the bases. That condition got worse. And unfortunately, he used alcohol as a treatment and a coping mechanism for his epilepsy. In 1919, back with the Cubs, he led the National League in ERA. In 1920, he won 27 games, and he again led the National League in ERA with a 1.91 mark. Then in 1926, he was waived to St. Louis in June and helped the Cardinals to the pennant, winning 9 games. It was in 26 that the Cardinals, obviously, after winning the pennant, competed in the World Series against Murderers Row, the Yankees, and Alexander was 39 at the time. He won 2 games. They were both complete games, and he saved another, and he finished with a 1.33 ERA. He tossed a 4-hitter in game number 2, won game number 6, allowing 2 runs. In game number 7, he was summoned out of the bullpen with 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th and the bases loaded when starter Jesse Haynes couldn't throw anymore because he had a bloody hand due to blisters, so he could not continue. Alexander was going to face Tony Lazzeri, and he struck him out. I think it was on 4 pitches. Lazzeri was a rookie phenom for the Yankees, and he had 117 RBIs during the regular season. And Alexander preserved the lead for the Cardinals, which was 3-2 at the time. The Yankees went down 1-2-3 in the 8th, and then the first 2 batters in the 9th were also retired before Ruth walked on a full count. He actually was thrown out on the first pitch to the next batter, ending the World Series. And that's the only time in World Series history that the Fall Classic has ended on a caught stealing. Interesting. Ruth and Garrick went a combined 1-for-14 in the series against Alexander, who ended up retiring just a few years later in 1930, playing part of his last year back in Philadelphia. He was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1938, and he received 80.9% of his of the votes on his 3rd ballot. He died, unfortunately, in 1950, poor and lonely, in his rented dwelling. Contributing factors were probably his alcoholism, and he died just a few blocks, actually, from where he was raised. Alexander threw, according to experts who believe it was in the mid to upper 80s at tops, but he just had such good pinpoint location, a great sinker and changeup. And even after losing some more speed off of his fastball after the war, he never lost his ability to locate his pitches, which just made him hard to hit. And I got a couple quotes here I find interesting. The first one is from second baseman Johnny Evers, or Evers. It's actually Evers is kind of what everybody thinks is pronounced, but I think back in his hometown he was called something else, so whatever one you want to go with. But he said, "He made me want to throw my bat away when I went to the plate. He fed me pitches I couldn't hit. If I let them go, they were strikes. He made you hit bad balls he could throw into a tin can all day long." And then Babe Ruth had this to say about Alexander. He says, "Just to see old Pete out there on the mound with that cocky little undersized cap pulled down over one ear, chewing away at his tobacco and pitching baseball as easy as pitching hay is enough to take the heart out of a fellow. So Ruth just thought that he just had everything came naturally to Alexander in the way he threw, and he was just incredibly tough to hit. One last thing before I end the video with a clip from Major League Baseball about the 1926 series I think you'll find interesting was that in 1952, Ronald Reagan played Alexander in the movie The Winning Team, which was based upon Grover's life and the 1926 series. So appreciate you being with me, and hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching, and stay tuned here for the remainder of the video, which will be a clip courtesy of Major League Baseball.
Let's see who it's going to be. Going to be Grover Cleveland Alexander. Old Pete will come on.
The most unheralded in proportion to what he accomplished, in the words of the people who played with him and against him, is Grover Cleveland Alexander.
He had been a great pitcher as a young man and had to overcome a lot of physical problems. He was an epileptic and was a very heavy drinker, and that also could be a problem off the field.
All the old-timers I have talked to all my life put Walter Johnson and Grover Cleveland Alexander in the same category, the top two right-hand pitchers.
Alexander, some people think, the best pitcher ever. It suffice to say that if he was not the greatest of all pitchers, there was never anyone who was better.
I guess the most memorable thing in his career came very late in his career, in 1926 in the World Series against the Yankees.
The seventh game of the World Series, which is always a romantic event, is started by Jesse Haynes, a knuckleball pitcher. At the bottom of the seventh, the Yankees load the bases, 2 out. Haynes can go no further. His fingers are bleeding from throwing that knuckleball.
Haynes will be relieved, and I can't tell who's going to come in. It is going to be Grover Cleveland Alexander. Old Pete will come on.
He said there were younger men in the bullpen, fresher arms.
In the sixth game, he pitched a complete game victory to even the series at 3-3 for the St. Louis Cardinals.
This was a legend walking in. It's a gray afternoon, Yankee Stadium, walking in out of the mist. This was the man they believed in.
Old Pete will come on. The veteran Alexander will try to put out the fire here in the last half of the seventh inning.
And he got near the mound, and Hornsby walked over from second base, met him as he came in, looked in his eyes, and he said, "Pete, bases loaded, 2 out. Well, there ain't no place to put anybody as a Raj."
He'll first be faced by Tony Lazzari.
Rookie Tony Lazzari, hard-hitting, tough-minded, young second baseman.
Again, the runners take their long 2-out bases-loaded leads.
And he told Hornsby, "I'm going to pitch the first one, fastball inside, and if he hits it, it'll be foul." And Hornsby said, "No, you can't do that as a fastball hitter." And Alexander said, "If I put it where I want to put it, he's going to hit it foul if he hits it at all." And then Hornsby looked at Alexander and said, "Well, who the hell am I to tell you how to pitch?" And Alexander said, "Then I'm going to curve him low and away. 1, 2, 3. And that's exactly what happened.
Again, the runners take their long 2-out bases-loaded leads. Pitches. Swung on and missed for strike 3. And that is all for the New York Yankees in the last half of the seventh inning, as Old Pete comes in a situation that will go down as one of the most dramatic moments in all sports, and strikes out push-him-up Lazzari with the bases full.
Into the mythological books of baseball history goes Alexander and his strikeout of Lazzari, which a lot of historians like to look upon as the ultimate generational challenge in baseball history.